Well, good morning and good afternoon to you all. Welcome to Tech Talk with Zyxel. My name is Tri Win, and I am the Zyxel product marketing development manager and sales manager here at Zyxel North America. Just welcome to say, hey, glad that you're here. Just a quick run of business, a show of hands. If you could hear me okay with the sound. Joe, thank you again for always being here. Michael, Brett, Hakeem, thank you. Hadi, thank you. Thank you. So that's great. So I've been here now for, let's see, almost 17 years at Zyxel with over 21 years of networking experience in the networking industry. And we get to talk about a fun topic today because it's one that's dear to my heart because I've been the product manager for that for over a decade now for our security products. But I like for this kind of time to be interactive. So if you wouldn't mind, always feel free to use the chat box to talk to me. If you have any questions, you can always post it in the Q&A section and we can try to get to that in line with whatever I'm presenting at that time as well. We have a lot of slides to cover, and hopefully this will be informative for you today on our solutions and just be able to kind of understand what Zyxel has to offer, how we can provide a networking solution for you from a security standpoint. So looking forward to spending this time with you. So it's just probably over the next 45, 50 minutes or so is kind of what we like to do. And again, we'll have some question time as well at the end if there is some time, or if you have any questions, feel free to drop it into the Q&A section. A quick introduction about who Zyxel is. We are Zyxel Networks, 30 years of networking expertise, 100 million devices making connections with 600 passionate employees worldwide. We serve 150 markets and 700,000 businesses use Zyxel solutions to do things smarter. I mean, just a fast way and be able to do a very proactive way of protecting themselves. We are recognized internationally for our innovation and design and our global awards that we have won, and we continue to produce that. So 2021 is also, we have a bunch that is there. So this slide will get updated shortly. We've been certified with ICSA. This is a Verizon entity that does certifications typically of like firewalls and security appliances. And we've been one of the few vendors who have actually gone 20 years in a row. So 20 years, over 20 years of certification, making sure things are interoperable. The firewall functionalities that we state are true and function well. So solutions, we are solutions driven. So if you are a solutions provider, a partner, a managed service provider, we're here for you. We want to work with you. We work with our development and R&D facilities overseas and locally in the West Coast of California to deliver different types of solutions for verticals, for specific applications, or just general applications overall. Just how do we make and how do we partner with you in providing features, functions that allow for you to manage your customers better or make your installation process or functionality of certain applications work better. So we want to work with you. So always feel free to reach out to your sales rep or to our support team and provide that feedback. Even with products that you might think like we need, there are certain things that you may hear from from the front lines that you're working on, certain projects where you're like, hey, is there a technology that does something like this? Because we're always open. We always know what chipsets are available within within the industry to see what kind of actual solutions that we can actually build and bring to market. So we provide an end-to-end portfolio, and that's where we can help you with and providing a whole solution, a comprehensive solution end to end, from security appliances, wireless solutions for guest network access and private access, switching networks to power up those wireless solutions, or IP camera solutions, or other entry or PoE type solutions, gateway access solutions to provide you with hotspot management, guest network access with a terms of service or a login page, and be able to manage all of that with either a standalone solution as a kind of a cloud, or in a cloud solution, or in a standalone solution. So kind of a variety of ways that we can help you manage and deploy the products in these types of solutions. But today we get to focus on security, security and how you can take control of your networking security needs within your customers. We're going to talk about how different things about the products themselves, but also the feature sets that people are typically looking for, or things that people may not even know or understand about security. Security is kind of like wireless, I would say, network and security in general. because you can't really see it. You can't really see that it's happening. You need ways to actually get visibility of that. So how do you do it in a very effective way, but not sacrifice speed, not sacrifice security? And how do you protect the network and be able to manage that? Maybe if you're just managing one, maybe you're just your own office that you're managing with a Zyxel product, it's fairly simple. But when you're talking about some of our partners who are managing hundreds of devices across hundreds of customers, then it becomes an issue on that kind of scale. So how do you manage all that? So we have solutions that will do that, and bringing, really focused on the SMB, the small to medium sized businesses. I would say, less than 500 seats or 500 users or so is probably a good point of where to gauge our product line. And so that's where our main focus is. And we're really focused on providing what the SMB needs. We bring that expertise to, from our partners, to how to deal with those issues that are related to those small businesses, how to deal with security and also employee access, and be able to handle it with our ever increasing speed needs, right? So there are a couple of things that we need to worry about. So in some statistics, 54% of small businesses think they're too small for a cyber attack. And this is very common, I would say. People would think, well, I'm too small anyways for anybody to really want to target us, right? It's kind of the mentality that kind of gets people into trouble a lot of times, that no, I'm not going to be a target. You may not be a target, but you may still be a side effect of what's going on out there on the internet. 47% of small businesses have no understanding on how to protect themselves against cyber attacks. And this is where you as partners and you as security installers are bringing that expertise, bringing that knowledge base to the customer, not only to educate them, but also have a solution to implement into their network to provide that kind of protection. 60% of small businesses that are victims of cyber attacks go out of business within 6 months. And that's kind of a scary thought. That's some of the things that they can be taken down through different types of threats, maybe infections, or even ransomware. Sometimes they don't have a backup of everything either, so it can cause some major problems for that businesses. 43% of breach victims are actually small businesses, so that's pretty big number. 424% increase in new small business cyber attacks last year. So it always is a thing. If you're not protected, eventually you're going to get attacked, or something's going to happen. It's kind of an inevitability. How many of you, and I've done this myself, whenever you've installed a new router or a new firewall, how many of you just have checked the logs and immediately notice, or when you just install a new server that's might be publicly, public facing with a firewall, how quickly do you think you start getting all sorts of scans, all sorts of pings, all sorts of basically discovery to try to figure out what is vulnerable? It's pretty instantaneous. It's kind of scary. You plug it in, my router immediately gets a bunch of logs about people are trying to access the web GUI or that IP address, and my firewall is constantly dropping. So you can imagine what your PC or an unprotected network may be facing if they were just facing the internet, publicly. Every 39 seconds, there is a hacker attack of some sort, and 54% of small businesses don't have a plan in place for reacting to cyber attacks. So not only do they not know how to deal with it, they don't even know how to react to it. So that's why they're kind of left at the mercy of somebody, or to come in and help protect. It's a matter of time. For me, it's like kind of like insurance. It's something's going to happen eventually. So you need to have that protection to be able to protect your business, protect your network, and really the attackers or the malware. They really don't care if you're a small business or if you're a big business or you're a corporation. It will just try to attach itself. It will try to find vulnerabilities that it can utilize for additional means, right? They're just trying to find hosts sometimes, to find other ways to use your machine or use your network in order to get access to other things, or maybe cause some attacks and things like that. So maybe in the chat right now, it's kind of fun to kind of know, but what kind of cyber attacks have your customers experienced? Go ahead and just type it in the chat if you'd like. There's things like cyber attacks from malware, from ransomware, from all the above. It's like, you may have customers say, Alex says ransomware, and that's very prevalent. See, ransomware is like a really big one too. Thank you, Hadi. It just makes its way in And people don't even realize that. And that's the kind of the downfall, is that when you don't have that visibility, you just know when you've been attacked because your computer no longer works, or works really, poorly. And then you have to take action. So that's when people will then call you and say, do you have a solution? Can you fix this? Right. So people typically don't think about it until it's too late. Hadi also says email VoIP hacks. Yeah, so there's a lot of ways, and there's a lot of vulnerabilities, and people without any knowledge of how the traffic is going through, there's no way to kind of protect themselves from those kinds of attacks. And a lot of times too, it's coming from the inside, right? With phishing emails, like Hadi said, phishing, being able to people recognizing what kind of emails are potentially malware, or linking them to spaces that is going to cause a kind of a download of a Trojan, or a remote access, or even a botnet type functionality. But we partner with some of the leading security specialists in the industry: McAfee, Webroot, Lastline, Trend Micro, Bitdefender. All of these solutions providers work with Zyxel, and using our hardware and using cloud interface and AI to provide a secure networking experience for your customer. Depending on what their needs are, you're able to enable these different functionalities as your solutions needs. But we partner with them because we use their expertise. As more and more applications are being moved to the cloud, there's an increase as well for speed. And even in our current, in our current shift in how we work in the workforce, like here, I've been into our headquarters office in Anaheim, California, twice since last March. So it's been a fun experience, I guess you can say. But luckily for us, as a networking company, networking solutions provider company, we're able to do this remote kind of access, remote kind of teleworking, right? And so that need, as you've seen over the last almost year now, we've been requiring a higher internet speed, not only at home. So upgrade cycles are increasing, and also the office space as well is needing upgrading as well, because everybody's trying to download files or access files in the cloud or at the office, or maybe even remote desktoping to the office itself. They're requiring a higher upload speed at the office level to provide as a download speed to the local to the remote user, right? So doing things like voice, video, data applications, and people are always connected with multiple devices. I'm here connected with a laptop, a PC, a tablet, a phone. So there's always a something that is going to be connected to that network, needing more speed. And with more speed, you have to be able to provide still the security levels that you require. And those security then is going to require then you to have typically a bigger box, right? In order to maximize and to be able to provide the security you have. And it's really easy for people today. You may have customers who call now today as their internet speeds have increased to hundreds of megs, and they've called you and said, hey, I've done a speed test. It's real easy for people to do the speed test and find out, why is my internet connection when I'm using your firewall or your service, why is it much lower than what I'm paying for? Right. And that's a common question. And then that's where you have to provide a solution to solve that. How do you still maintain security while still being able to offer the speeds that they are wanting and that what they want to use? So really, that boom in the speed increase is now causing a lot of upgrades, causing an upgrade cycle to the firewall itself, because the firewall has now become a bottleneck. So how do you provide the different solutions there? So we provide secure functionality across our product lines. So I'll talk about what the different product lines are for our security, but in general, our products will come with VPN high availability capabilities. So high availability, you may know already, VPN, people doing remote access, secure encrypted connectivity from a home office, from a remote office, from a coffee shop, whatever it is. They're building an encrypted tunnel back to the office, and we're able to facilitate that and terminate that into one of our firewalls. But we will offer what we call high availability, meaning that you can have multiple internet connections, multiple WANs, and do load balancing and failover for those VPN connections. So just in the case of one of the ISPs goes down in your office, you're able to actually rebuild the tunnel automatically to the secondary or to the backup connection. So with remote access being very important today, and having access to those resources, it makes it very important for you to have that high availability to be able to build that IPsec tunnel to either one of the connections. And that leads us also to load balancing of the internet connection. So being able to load balance and fail over, just in case a connection goes down, you can move over to the different connections. Warren asks, sounds like you're talking about on-premise firewalls. Does Zyxel do anything for cloud servers? Stuff on Azure, AWS, Google, OneDrive. We have integrations with Azure and AWS in terms of providing a VPN connectivity. Now, the actual firewall functionality itself and be able to do firewalling, it's in the works right now as a cloud firewall. So that's a next generation type product that will be coming out. Our main focus still today, in this year or so, is still on the on-prem firewall, since we still need some sort of hardware to sit there at the prem. In the future, that firewall may end up becoming more of just a redirect, almost like a firewall switch, where it will build the connection and make that VPN connection into the Amazon side, to the AWS, and have a centralized AWS type firewall that will do the kind of the policy enforcement, the scanning, and stuff like that. So that's coming in the future there, Warren. Multi-WAN balancing of broadband connections, being able to connect from fiber, Ethernet. If you have wireless connections that can provide internet as well, we can load balance those. And that's the cool thing, load balance failover. You can have both connections working at the same time, or you may have one that's just a on when the main one is a failure. And the cool thing is it can fail back. So once it loads over to the secondary, if the main one comes back, it will go back to the primary. Virtual tunnel interfaces. So being able to manage any kind of tunnel as if it was an interface and be able to trunk those VPN together and make them load balance. So connections from office to office. You can utilize multiple connections to get a kind of a bigger pipe to build that connectivity between locations. So a lot of different little functions that kind of facilitate the ability to make connectivity and make it in a secure way. Just like SSL VPN secure extender, using an SSL VPN to make it easy for you to build a tunnel using basically browser technology, SSL security, like your online banking, and be able to use that to make a VPN connection into your office. Support for L2TP for mobile devices or tablets to kind of dial into a VPN and still do it securely over IPsec. Those are pretty much built into a lot of the mobile or tablet. Easy use, easy VPN wizards, and zero configuration capabilities. So if you don't have expertise on how to configure a lot of the intimate, in little details of your VPN settings, you can go through a wizard that actually outputs either a file configuration or even an email link that you can send to the person who has the software, which then they can, it will integrate that into their system to make their connectivity. Robust security with the SHA-2 VPN encryption and those advanced settings there for any kind of applications that you're needing that higher level of security. We provide antivirus, anti-malware solutions with our industry-leading gateway antivirus solutions. Fast stream-based, not only stream-based with signatures locally, but also providing cloud-based scans as well to provide real-time protection with no size limitations, so the file can pass through. Content filtering is a big solution that we sell from a security standpoint. Being able to utilize an online database of over 140 billion URLs. I didn't realize there were that many websites, but that's a lot of websites. 140 billion URLs that are continuously analyzed. Our solutions provider checks it, categorizes it, tracks it, and you can actually use different categorizations to block people from going to gambling sites or inappropriate websites or even social media. You're able to control that within your employee base and provide productivity, provide the connectivity. And today's age, like right now, with people who are working remotely, there's a big challenge for IT people, because how do you control someone's home network? Right? There's no control per se. They may have just a router that's given to them by the service provider, and they have no access to it. And how do you control that versus having the employee get access to the internal office as well? There's a big kind of security hole potential there. So, and including content filtering. And so how do you control at least the resources from a PC that's from the company? How do you control that and go through the policies that you would and be able to manage that while as if they were sitting in the office itself, right? In the physical prem, you have a lot more control, but how do you do it in kind of a virtual environment? So there are ways to be able to deploy, endpoint type firewall that then builds VPN tunnels and be able to do the processing of the policies and things like that, content filtering through that tunnel as they are using, office equipment. Of course, you can't stop somebody from using their private, products or private devices to get access for other things, but at least from a control of, network access of resources of your office, and your security policies can be managed that way. Doing layer 7 application intelligence, being able to scan specific applications to say, hey, you are using Skype, or you're trying to watch Netflix or whatever it is, right? If you're using those applications, we can identify those not just by the ports, but by the actual packets themselves. That's why it's called layer 7 application intelligence. And then based on identifying what it is, you can choose what you want to do with it. So I can literally say, you can watch Netflix on this machine outside of office hours, but inside office hours, it's going to be blocked. Or you can actually lower the thresholds of the throughput and say, well, you can still do, Pandora, but we're only going to give you 100 megabits, 128 kilobits per second, right? You can actually load and do bandwidth control at that layer as well. So there's a big flexibility to provide that kind of functionality and protection for that. Geo IP enforcing, being able to use mapped IP addresses to go to either specific countries or specific locations in order to help mitigate, different types of access. So you can say, well, if you're outside the US, you shouldn't have to VPN to this or into the office. So you can literally just classify, we'll only accept, US based type IP addressing. And that doesn't solve everything, because if you're talking about a hacker, they know how to get around that. But the general traffic, the general, maybe the pinging type traffic or the discovery packets that are, a lot of malware or even ghosted or zombied machines will try to just look for any host that they can find. So all of that China traffic, if it's outside the US, it's automatically dropped anyway. So that really kind of helps to mitigate kind of the threats that are there. We have solutions that provide sandboxing in machine learning. I'll talk a little bit more about how our sandboxing solution works, but basically it's leveraging a cloud-based sandbox and AI technology, some artificial intelligence to determine if a product or if a file or connection is malware or is threatening, and be able to take actions on it. Botnet malware blockers themselves, both in the cloud type solutions, intrusion detection and prevention. This will help against different kinds of access or Trojans or things that may be a remote connection that is not considered safe. A lot of times that's how the remote user or the remote hacker is able to get on. James asks, which firmware are these available on? So it's not necessarily firmware. It's more so some of these features are specific for a particular product. Like the sandboxing feature is part of the ATP product line that I'll talk about. But pretty much everything else, the intrusion prevention, reputation filters and stuff like that, they're all kind of housed in. And I have a slide that will tell you kind of the breakdown between the different models in just a moment. Reputation filters, so the IP, if it's safe or not, or if it's malware. So in general, though, the firewalls, which firewalls? The firewalls is any of our USGs, USG flexes, our VPNs, and our ATPs. And I'll cover those models as well. Integrated Wi-Fi controller, all of our managed AP, all of our devices have actually built-in managed AP capability. So if you use a Zyxel business class access point, you're able to auto-deploy, manage them directly within the firewall itself. So all of our firewalls that we provide now have this integrated Wi-Fi controller. You just have to watch out for whatever number it is that it supports and be able to have the correct either licensing to open it up to the max or whatever its default is supported if it's enough for you to use. It also includes hotspot management in our products. I think majority of our products in the kind of the second level of product on will have that hotspot management. The lowest end, I don't think has. Some of them may not have it, especially our earlier USGs, but we've added this feature to allow for you to do things like tiered billing, how to do terms of service. You've been to like a hotspot today, right? You log on to the Wi-Fi, you instantly get redirected to a page that says, here's the terms of service. If you want to continue and you want to get access, go ahead and click here, right? That is the portal redirect, terms of service redirect to get internet connection. Now we have that tiered billing, which allows for you to say, hey, I want free access, and here's my email account or Facebook login, and I can get access there. Or I can choose maybe a higher tier, because remember, the firewall has the ability to recognize different connections and also different applications and do bandwidth control. So you can literally say, here's a premium tier that you charge, $5 a day or whatever, and be able to provide them a 10 megabits per second connectivity, for that application, or maybe a VPN access, and be able to charge a nominal fee for that. And that's one of the ways that I know a lot of our partners can be using that to recoup a lot of the connectivity. Because in today's age, nobody really wants to pay for internet access. If they're in a public hotspot, they expect it's free. So we provide the free service as an amenity, but then offer a premium at a nominal fee. And we see a lot of people going, hey, wow, $5 a day, that's worth it. So they subscribe to it and get access to the higher tier. So you're able to add those kinds of things on. For some of the products, some of our firewalls, we add a lot of resilience integration into it to make sure that the product itself is always available, always on. Things like link aggregation, provide backup connectivity to provide higher access, then you can do that. High availability is now available in all of the tier product that supports it. It's available for free now. You're able to do device to device high availability. So there's automatically failover, active passive modes for that. If you need to have some sort of applications to do SSL packet inspection, to need to do that policy enforcement, even on secure level, secured encrypted pages, you're able to do that with our solutions. Radius and Active Directory integration, that helps to make it easier for you to manage your user base, who has access to the network, who has access to build the VPN tunnels, and be able to manage that in groups. So you can say, hey, there's a security policy for everybody who's a salesperson versus those who are managers. And you may have that in your Active Directory and be able to control all of that and provide the appropriate, allowing of connectivity. Maybe all the managers have access to, any websites, whereas the sales is very limited, right? So it's a matter of what your needs are, and we are able to facilitate that. And then one of the things that we are very focused on is the flexibility of the products. You will see, like, in a $250 street price box, you have the capabilities of doing majority of all these features, right? So it's a very feature rich, feature packed, since this is now I think a 6th or 7th generation product, since I've been here. So there's a lot of history, experience in the security space that Zyxel has brought to the small business network area. So if you haven't used a Zyxel product in security before, we know that sometimes there is maybe a little bit of a learning curve to get up to speed, but once you're there, a lot of our partners are really appreciative and very loyal on the product line. So we want to focus on kind of 3 aspects of our security: simplicity, which is our VPN series; our flexibility, which is our USG Flex series; and the Ultimate series, which is our ATP series. So that's kind of the best security package bundle that you can get, versus something like simplicity, which is just your VPN SPI firewall. So here are some of the difference of them. I can provide this slide. I'll provide it to our marketing team, and we will email that out as a PDF for you as reference, to see kind of the major differences between the simplicity, flexibility, and ultimate. So the VPN series, the USG Flex series, and the ATP series. So majority of it, if you're looking for just basic. Let me get my laser pointer out here. If you're just looking for a connectivity for VPN, making that encryption connection, making those tunnels work and work very quickly, you want to go with the VPN series. Now, if you have a customer who says, I need UTM, I need to be able to do intrusion detection, that malware blocking, all of the security protections that's out there, you might want to look first at the USG Flex. That has all of those kinds of features. Now, if the main difference between the Flex and the ATP is that the ATP provides you the ultimate and protection, that it does both the dual scanning, and we'll talk about what dual scan mode means. It does sandboxing, it does the IP reputation, it does DNS reputation filters as well. So that's if you want all of those extra higher end 0-day attack protection. You're doing maybe something in the medical field, or even in finances or government type applications, then the Ultimate series is probably your better bet. But we have customers who use for PSI compliances and HIPAA compliances using our USG series all the time. So it just really depends on what you are needing and kind of what level the customer is requiring for this kind of security services, because obviously it also costs more, right, for the hardware and also for the yearly services for these solutions. So first up to bat is simplicity. VPN series has built-in wireless controller. It has basic content filtering. It does do SD-WAN support as well. So they're doing certain applications. If you're doing end-to-end SD-WAN, that's where this solution helps to provide the connectivity between that. So you either have to host this into the cloud or into a co-location that's next to, let's say, a voice server, and you have your remote locations are making a VPN connection through SD-WAN, through an SD-WAN connection or a solution to load balance between the remote office, and getting a fastest way to that Voip server to be able to maximize that connectivity. And high availability is in our VPN 100, 300, and 1000 products. The models we have on our low end, these would be used probably in a small office or in a home office, VPN 20 or VPN 50, and you can see the capacity and the throughputs there are pretty just low, around probably a 50 meg connection or 100 meg connection is probably maximum. VPN 100 is probably our most popular VPN series, just because it's kind of in the middle there. On the central side, typically we'll see a VPN 300 or a VPN 1000 making those connections for SPI. So again, there's no UTM throughput on these. They're primarily focused for VPN connectivity and SPI firewall throughput. The flexibility series with our new USG Flex models provides high performance UTM, up to 500% more than the previous generation in terms of speed of UTM. It has enhanced UTM functionalities where we can actually use different filterings and counterterrorism filtering as well. For that, wireless built-in controller as usual with flexible management. Soon to come to the Nebula control. So if you are looking at, also using our Nebula control cloud solution for management, for deployment in the Nebula solution, USG Flex will probably come to that in about in our March, April timeframe. So we're already in the process of testing it out. So probably end of first quarter is when our target is for Nebula for the USG Flex. So that's coming. USG Flex consists of, I think, 5 models. The USG Flex 100, the 100W has built-in wireless, the 200, and also the 500. And we just released the USG Flex 700 as well. So the main thing to think about when you are deploying any kind of security appliance is you first have to check, what is the application? Are they requiring UTM, or are they just needing a basic firewall with VPN connectivity? Because let's say they said, well, I just need a basic VPN and no, I don't want any kind of UTM because I either have something else or I don't need that kind of services. You would just look at the SPI and VPN throughput. For these numbers, because of the way that it's tested in the industry, these are the maximum theoretical numbers, meaning we are pushing multiple sessions at the largest packet size to see where the breakpoint is, basically, right? To see what its theoretical max Usually in a typical situation, when you're looking at these data sheet numbers, and this is across the board, you'll see that the actual throughput, if you do like a speed test.net type, or you're doing your own kind of speed test, the throughput is about 50 to 60% of that number. So you want to use that to kind of gauge which product fulfills that. Now there are certain applications that you're doing that's going to go well beyond these numbers, or even what you think as the 50 or 60%, but that's kind of a good kind of gauge on how to spec out for your customer which one is appropriate. They may only have, let's say, one person working there, but their connection is a 500 meg connection. So in order for them to maximize that 500 meg connection while still maintaining all of that security, is, you have to look at this UTM throughput. UTM throughput here, for example, is the USG Flex 500. It's an 800 meg UTM. So you would take 50%, so that's 400 to 500 megabits per second. So this would fulfill for that particular office. So again, you want to see how how things work. You can see also the wireless LAN controller numbers. It comes default with 8 in this particular model, and you can expand it up to 72 and unlock 72 access points that it can manage. So really integrating it with a switch in our access points really makes it a great solution to provide overall security and overall access. And everything that's on the wireless passing through the firewall also becomes controlled. So that's really cool about that. I think I just had some. Let me see if I had. Let me check something real quick. I think I may have had. Oh no, I don't. I thought I had some slides that were hidden. So we have our Ultimate Series, which is our ATP models. They provide everything else that you saw earlier, but this time it also includes sandboxing, AI technology to do that, to find zero-day threats, and also URL threat filters in that, being able to do that. So the difference is, the ATP actually goes beyond conventional UTM that you may be used to. So a lot of the techniques of existing UTM, you have to have the signatures, you have to know what the virus is or the malware is in order to identify it and then take action. Well, the ATP series goes beyond that, and it actually uses some techniques to protect against zero-day threats, anything that's more sophisticated than your typical UTM. So conventional UTM, those threats are known. These are the signature bases at the top. You have your anti-spam, your antivirus, your content filtering, and then you can identify them, but you'll typically identify them as you're actually known good, or they're bad, or they're suspiciously bad. So you'll block them. But you can't identify things that are possibly good or suspicious or even just unknown altogether. And so you can't identify these with your conventional UTM. So that's where ATP sandboxing and artificial intelligence in the cloud comes to manage this. So we're able to block those unknown security threats and to provide zero-day type protection. So we're able to conquer those unknown threats. We're able to block suspicious traffic, and while maintaining high throughput on the to improve on the experience, we're able to isolate those files in a sandboxing technology to analyze what's going on. So we use a cloud smart smart cloud intelligence solution, and again, it analyzes them in real time to establish if they are a malware, if they're doing anything that is a potential threat, and uses machine learning to provide this information and becomes stronger basically after every attack. So it learns from all the things that is coming to it, what is malware and what is not. And this is kind of a little example of how it works. How do we conquer those security threats? So let's say there's an unknown threat, which is a zip file maybe, and it's not categorized or cataloged anywhere. It will actually get sent to the cloud. And inside the sandbox, it gets emulated, it gets opened up, it gets unzipped. Any of the files in there becomes, executed, and it looks for any kind of packet connections or patterns, and it contains it within that sandbox. It then can use that information to identify if this is a malicious attack or not, and then make some sort of intelligent decision on that, and then provide an update signature in the cloud that can then be provided to other devices that are using the ecosystem. And the ecosystem is actually a global security ecosystem providing real-time cloud device intelligence. It actually connects all the devices that use this ecosystem together in a sense that if there is a threat or a 0-day attack on something on the other side of the world, literally within 4 seconds after it's been made into it's been analyzed and made into a signature within the cloud, it's now being part of the protection scan within the within the other devices that are utilizing that. So it really ensures that all the ATPs and products globally are updated and they're consistently making these connections and making these protection across the world. So as more and more viruses are being discovered around the world, the more this system becomes protected. So we use a company called Lastline. It's powered by Lastline Security. It was one of the leading security cloud sandboxing solutions for enterprises, and we've been able to put that, and that's kind of a common thing that Zyxel has done, is to bring kind of enterprise type solutions into the small businesses. So this is a kind of a information map here for NSS Labs on a comparative report, and Lastline is up there with like Trend Micro, Checkpoint, Fortinet in terms of its solution, being one of the security leaders for sandboxing type applications. So our ultimate ATP series consists of, again, similar models that you saw on the USG Flex. So we try to make it easy for you once you found kind of the positioning of where your customer, it fits. There is an equivalent USG Flex. So there's a USG Flex 100, a USG Flex 100W that maps right to the ATP 100 or ATP 100W. So it's a matter of whether you need the extra, botnet filter, URL filter, the sandboxing solution if you move up to the ATP. Otherwise, you will stick with the USG Flex models. So the naming there is trying to stay consistent with that. So from a performance level, they're very similar in providing that connectivity or the protection that you need there within that solution. So we have the ATP 100 on the lower end all the way through, and it's all about capacity. It's all about performance of the solutions as you move up the scale. There's an ATP 500, 700 as well that we also released recently. But the ATP does have one thing that the USG Flex doesn't have yet, which is the ATP 800. So kind of a bigger flagship type solution. We figured that if a customer is moving to an area where they are deploying a much higher box capacity, then they're most likely going to need probably access to all the security functions, whether they decide to turn it on or not. One other thing that you might want to make sure, especially as a service provider, we've been finding out, basically on our reports and information that we collect on the licensing, there are a lot of customers or a lot even partners that may have installed a solution that has all of the services and the security functions there, but never have activated it. Maybe it's just a misconception that, hey, if I just bought the box and I just installed it, that it would just start to protect. But you still have to configure it. You have to enable the licensing in order for it to start ticking on the timer, plus, do the protection. So make sure that you're doing that just so that you don't have a false sense of, the product is doing what it's doing already, right? Make sure that it's actually enabled, because we do find that in a lot of cases. We across our firewall line, our USGs, our USG Flex, and our ATP, we've introduced what we call Express Mode. Express Mode allows for us to do cloud queries against a database within the cloud, rather than scanning just the signature bases that are in the local device. This gives us leverage to be able to use that cloud interface and use that AI and that evolving intelligence in the cloud to maximize the security and the threats that are available there. So the sandboxing solution that feeds the kind of the signatures and things like that, that all comes into play with this Express Mode. All of those partners that you've seen earlier, they all contribute in some way to this kind of cloud query. So with deep scan mode and hybrid mode, your USG Flexes today with the current firmwares will support the cloud query. Now with the USG Flex, you can choose between the two. You can choose cloud query or scan mode. Depends on your applications. There's pros and cons, just like everything else. And I'll talk about that on the next slide. But ATP gives you the option of kind of best of both worlds, because you can do express mode, deep scan, or you can do both. You can do both scanning on the cloud and the stream. So what typically it'll do is it will check the cloud real quick. If it's scannable, if it exists, then it will take that. If not, it will try to check a local scan to see if that file exists or that signature exists there as well. So with Cloud Query or Express mode, it's basically doing hash matching over the cloud. It's seeing if this file exists already and if it's already been marked as a malware or not based on its cloud hash or based on its hash file information. And that can be determined very quickly. And so they are able to make a block. The advantages of that is that you can get a very big performance increase on the UTM functionalities over what's available. So you can get a high throughput. That's where you can typically get up to close to like the gigabit type speeds that you may be looking for. You might have like a gigabit connection or really close to that. And so this will give you that capability of still providing very high level of security, functionality, and protection without sacrificing the speed, or be able to do that. World leading detection rate. Again, it's evolving with the AI. Some disadvantages of it is it does not work in isolated environments because it does require the internet. So you have to have an internet connection for it to check the cloud. If there are some mutant malware, that could be skipped initially. So it's kind of like part of that 0 day. If it doesn't exist in a cloud hash matching, it has to become a hash at some point. And once it's become a hash, then it can block. So if you have some mutants of that, it may pass on. With deep scan mode, it supports offline protection, but it's limited. It's limited by the hardware. You can only put so many signatures in a piece of memory that you've allotted for that, for that function. So the number of signatures is very limited there. So, and it's also limited a little bit more by, the scanning of the speed of the hardware itself in order to analyze the file, at that level. But it's better for kind of mutant protection, and those kinds of things. But the hybrid mode that you have in the ATP gives you the best of both worlds and gives you both protection, but it does have a higher cost because you have to buy the ATP series, which is a little more expensive, right? From a cost perspective. So if you need more security, obviously you have to pay for it. So it's the level of security that you're looking for. So with our USG Flex in general as well, the increase, like I mentioned before, up to 125% increase in firewall performance compared to the previous generation, but up to 500% of performance increase on the UTM level. And this is not even counting the hybrid mode functionality. This is straight up UTM performance. So hybrid mode is actually going to be even more than that. In some cases, double the performance here. So with USG Flex, we've actually made it flexible for you. I don't know, by show of hands, how many of you are currently deploying or using our existing USG series models? So our USG 40s, our USG 60s, our USG 110s and stuff. David, Alex, James, it's a very popular, it's been around now for about six years, that product line. Can you believe that? But we've enjoyed making that product and providing a host of solutions there. But we want to make the upgrade process easy. So we want to make it also beneficial. A lot of times in the previous cycles, customers would wait until their security is pretty much like expiring before they make the jump to the new hardware, because they feel like, hey, I've already paid for 2 years of or a year of this service. I want to maximize and get pretty much all the things that I need to. Paul's switching to the ATP though. Yeah, it depends on where you're going. If you want to go from that to the USG Flex, but we made it from a USG Flex standpoint simpler. I'm going to check though, Paul, like if a customer moves from an ATP, like from a USG to an ATP, is there some way that we can facilitate that as well? We do have our trade-in programs that will help to facilitate that. But in this case, we're using our straight across upgrade from our USG to a USG Flex easier. And so this is what happens. Just a kind of a general note, our NSG series, NSG 50, this is our Nebula Cloud solutions. We'll be moving over to and migrating to the USG Flex, specifically when the USG Flex is part of the Nebula Cloud. So end of March, beginning of April timeframe, when the USG Flex goes to the Nebula Cloud, then it will be the suitable migration. So just so you know, the NSG will still be supported, but you'll get much better benefit in terms of SPI throughput. You're dealing with the newer hardware, so UTM throughputs will also be increased when you go to the NSG or go to the Nebula Cloud side. So we'll be, moving that, will helping you with that migration as time comes when it gets closer to that. But for those who are using our USG series, we are mapping them over, again, better SPI throughput, better UTM performance, and be able to maximize kind of the moving and simplifying the migration pattern. Now, you may not know this, but if you end up getting a USG Flex, you'll notice that even on the box labels and on the belly label, the product will say USG 40 V2. So this is really to help facilitate from you as a customer when you're dealing with your customer. What we found out in the past is whenever we made a new model, it's how do we educate the customer that it's really the same product? How do we deal with that? How about upgrading NSG 100 to a Flex 500? You can do that anyways. You can always go to a higher level there, James. So it's just more of like, if you wanted an equivalent type product, that's kind of the straight across mapping. And of course, you can always upgrade to a higher level if you want. But usually from a like similar pricing position, similar speed, functionality, or kind of where it's positioned within that customer, that's kind of where, if you're not sure, of course, you can choose whatever product you want to upgrade a customer to. But if you don't know, this is kind of a good general kind of guideline. Of course, customer needs may be well beyond that, what you're going to, so you may end up having to bump up anyways to a different model. But either way, as you're upgrading, you can get benefit of that. So if you're doing the Kimura, the straight across, then we provide this kind of solution and this kind of migration path. But we call it a USG Flex 100, also USG 40 V2. And that helps to facilitate you convincing the customer that, hey, it's basically the same product that you currently have, but new hardware, higher speeds, higher performance, and longer life support basically for that product. So it's going to be a natural kind of move to upgrade your customers who don't like change, right? There's a lot of people, especially in the small business world, we like to have stuff installed, and if it can run for 10 years, by golly, we'll let it run for 10 years, right? I don't want to touch it. I don't want you to configure it. It's working. And the classic IT, if it ain't broke, then don't try to fix it, right? So that's kind of the mentality of a lot of these things. We have a lot of partners and a lot of customers who have things deployed, and they've been sending us pictures that look at the uptime. It's been uptime for 5 years. It's never been rebooted, right? So and it's still kicking, right? There's a lot of that instances out there, examples of that. So these are kind of the general mappings to the different products if you're migrating from the USG to the USG Flex. But we also, again, wanted to make and take out the issue that we had experienced before, is that people waiting to the very last minute to maximize whatever services they currently had before they made the switch. So this gives you the opportunity to switch over customers whenever maybe the internet connection requires it, or as you are going out and you're talking to each different customers and they're making their decisions on when to do their upgrades, then you can just do it pretty much at any time. James asked, can the rules and VPNs easily be migrated? We do have a configuration tool as you're mapping between those models, like I mentioned, and also VLANs. So there's some configuration stuff. I would probably have it checked, but if you're doing something very complex or maybe sophisticated, or maybe something that's a lot maybe out of the norm, you may want to use the tool first and load it and see how it goes through. You can also check with our tech support there, James, to see like how that migration, if certain rules or maybe there's certain caveats that might not translate correctly. But on the most part, the configuration should be transferred, because the USG Flex, they pretty much are very similar in terms of its configurations. And so the configuration file should be in general mappable. But let's say in this case, the customer has existing security services. So maybe they bought, a la carte, a bunch of different services. So this is kind of an extreme case. Typically, you might have a customer that's all 7 months left on all their services, right? But here's an extreme case where they have 7 months left of content filtering, only 2 months of anti-malware left. So how do you migrate this customer? If you want them to go to USG Flex, you can basically tell them Zyxel, or we as a partner, we can get extended all the other services to the 7-month period for free. So we normalize everything free of charge and put it at the longest security function time frame, and be able to move you to the new USG Flex at that. So this is just an example of if they just wanted the hardware replaced only. So you're just swapping out the hardware from a USG to a USG Flex with no additional services. We will just then move the 7 months over to the new product and normalize everything to 7 months. Now, if you're going to add, let's say you're going to sell the customer a bundled service, right? One that a USG Flex hardware that already comes with the services itself. Then what we end up doing is we normalize that 7 months, then we add it to the 12 months there. So all of the customers who are upgrading to the new USG Flex bundle will get, then here in this example, 19 months of services across the board. So that's really what we're doing. We're making it easier for you to do the upgrade cycle whenever you need to, and not have to wait till the very last minute, trying to squeeze out those last few days of UTM services. So there's no reason for you to not upgrade, right? So it just gives you the incentive to upgrade as soon as you can, whenever you can, or whenever you feel like it's beneficial to you. We use My Zyxel. So if you don't have a My Zyxel account right now, I'd encourage you to go make one. And that's where you manage all of your customer devices. You can make yourself and register as a reseller. So definitely at the top, there's a request for reseller view that gives you access to being able to see reporting of all the different devices when they expire. Also gets us to set up your marketplace solutions for the devices, and also marketplace discounts as a partner that you can use when you're doing license renewals. So utilize that. Go to My Zyxel. If you want more information, we have contact your sales rep. They have a whole kind of like a operating procedures standard information on how to use marketplace, how to use My Zyxel, and how to get those set up. So we use that in order to manage it. And like I mentioned earlier, our product's one of 7 brands in the world that actually has a gateway solution, firewall solution that supports, and they're validated both for AWS and Microsoft Azure. So you want to be able to make that connection. If you have solutions that need that VPN tunnel, load balancing of a VPN tunnel, multiple connections that's certified for these, being able to connect to it and use the cloud type resources that are being hosted, whether it be files, it be DNS servers, it be web, internal web, maybe CRM tools, whatever it may be, it can be in the cloud, and we can build the secure solution into that cloud application. We are also partnered with several distributors, D&H, Ingram, Micro, Synix, Waved, and Target Distribution, to providing discounts, to providing maximum rebates to partners. And when you sign up, you are automatically in the silver tier. And if you can maintain the silver tier, then you get all these benefits with our double-digit margin access. But we want you to bump up to the gold. That only requires 12K of sales in a half-year period, and that's literally a couple firewalls a month, and you should be able to hit the gold tier. We try to keep it a pretty low bar so that you can get the maximum discounts through distribution and through our distribution partners, and be able to work with us and with our sales engineers. If you have solutions that you need to provide, and we're here to help. We're here to provide those solutions and be able to figure out what is your good, better, best of solutions for firewalls, for wireless, for switches, and see what's best fitting for that customer. So we can help you out there. So if you have any questions now, if you've been sitting and just holding your questions, and if you'd like to ask me a question now, feel free to use the Q&A. And we'll try to get to those. If you don't have any questions, or maybe you can think of questions later on as you're going through this, you can email me at try@zyxel.com. Paul has a long VPN question. I might have to answer that, Paul. If you can email me that one, it might be a little long for me to just sit here and read. So then I could probably take that. I could take that offline if you don't mind. When again are Flex going to Nebula managed? It should be end of March to the beginning of April. So So that's when Nebula will come available to that. So you will have an announcement when it does, but I'm just letting you know beforehand that that's where we're going. We're finally getting there. I know a lot of you have been waiting for our firewalls, our standalones, to make it into the Nebula, so you can take advantage of the higher speeds, higher throughputs. There are some additional features that I haven't been able to talk about yet that are coming with that Nebula USG Flex going into Nebula. So there's some added benefit functionalities that the USG Flex will be able, and the ATP will be able to do when they get to Nebula. But first phase, USG Flex is going into Nebula. Then shortly after that, the ATP will also be making its way into Nebula as well. So actually Nebula, I think Nebula has just hit, I forgot what the number was. I think the number is something like over, I want to say 100,000 or 400,000. I can't remember which 100,000 it is, but at least over 100,000 devices now are all in Nebula. So it's a huge. Actually, we're pushing like 70,000 units, I think, of into Nebula every year or so. Actually, it's been accelerating. It's not just a year, but does Zyxel routing between spokes and VPN if I have a hub and spoke architecture? Yeah, absolutely. So Zyxel has that already. There is a what we call concentrator mode, which gives you that hub and spoke, and there's a VPN wizard that helps you with that. So you can literally build, A, B, and C, and A and B are connected, and B and C are connected. Into B is basically the main central office, and you're able to route through B and C. Through B to access C, right? So you can do that in a hub spoke and be able to manage the connection without having to build a VPN directly from, A to C. So there are solutions that provide that for you, and we call it basically concentrator mode. And you can even do with concentrator mode, you can choose the group of VPNs, and you can say, okay, A, B, and C, they're all part of one group, and they can all talk to each other. And so the system itself will build the rules that are required for it to do that. So you don't have to. Before, you had to manually build the different VPN tunnels and configure them all. But here we've simplified it to help you to build those VPN hub and spokes for office and branch office type connectivities. So great questions. Great spending the time. I went 2 minutes over with that question, but I appreciate you spending the time going through 58 slides in about 60 minutes, being able to cover this solution. There's a lot more details in terms of how the security functions, how it works, how each individual solution actually, how actually does what it does. If you want to find out more, you can go ahead and dive into probably I don't know if it's 1,000 pages still, but the user guide has a lot of information on if you're just kind of looking for something to read while you're in remote here. And there's a lot of different functions and a lot of features. I'm always happy about this product line because of its flexibility. It can be used in a home office to protect it, or it can be used in a very sophisticated application with multiple guest networks, multiple VLANs, multiple load balancing on like a $250 box. So that's always what amazes me in this product line. So hopefully you'll find that as well and find it useful and find this time that we've spent here, a little bit useful for you to determine what kind of solutions that are out there and how do I provide security solutions to my customers. So thank you for being there. Happy Tuesday to you all as well. And Heidi, yes, it does include the USG 310 series and the 210. Those are already, those have had that functionality for a while. So yeah, very interesting products. Thank you for being here. Hopefully we can be your networking ally. Again, feel free to reach out to me, try@zyxel.com. We look forward to talking to you soon. I forgot to mention though, next week, there is a best practices for security that's being presented by our security engineer or our systems engineer, Marcus, and he's going to be presenting on how to configure a device for best practices on different types of solutions on the security side. So look for that, sign up for it, and make sure you attend it if you're looking a little bit more in depth on how to configure your products optimally to make sure that it's working and securing as best as possible. All right, until then, we will look forward to seeing you again at another Tech Talk soon. Until then, good night or goodbye, good afternoon. Hopefully you have a good rest of your day. Take care.